Hi everybody, thank you very much for joining us for today's presentation on 6 ways in which you can improve your pension. I'd like to just give you a few seconds to read the disclaimer before the session itself gets started. I hope you find this session really enjoyable and useful. Hi everybody, my name is Abraham Ace. I'm a Chartered Financial Planner with Atticus Financial Planning. Thanks very much for joining us for today's session on 6 ways in which you can improve your pension. The reason why I'm doing this video today is because I got phoned recently by a friend who said, look, I'm coming towards retirement and I'm slightly concerned. I haven't built up the pension that I was expecting to have built up, and what can I do to actually improve my pension and my retirement income? So I thought I'd put together this quick session just so I can provide a few pointers and hopefully you'll find it useful. If you've got any questions, just feel free to give us a call anytime that you like. If you enjoy the video, please like the video, and also if you want to subscribe, we produce quite a lot of content on our YouTube channel. But yeah, so what I'm going to look at today is I'm going to look at 6 ways in which you can improve your pension. And the first thing I'm going to encourage you to look at is to review your pension investment portfolio. So basically what happens is when you first get invested in your pension, what most people do is they just go for the sort of generic fund that's available, the generic fund that the pension provider offers, and they invest in that, and for the next 20 or 30 years they don't even look at it. Other people, what they do is they fancy themselves as Warren Buffett initially. They're very interested. They choose different funds, different asset classes, but over 30 or 40 years they lose a bit of interest, and eventually the portfolio is just left to slide. Some of the funds become dog funds and they don't perform very well. And that's particularly true of older pensions where people have been invested in with-profit funds. Now, with-profit funds, many with-profit funds, people don't really understand how they work. They pay out bonuses, and people just have accepted them and accepted the poor returns. And the reality is, over 10 or 15 years, a lot of with-profit funds have been returning growth which is lower than you would have got in a cash account. And because people don't understand how they work with all the terminal bonuses and sort of exit charges, etc., they've just accepted that. So that's a really good starting point. I would have a look at what you've got, what you're invested in. If you haven't looked at your investments for a long time, it's really worth having a bit of a look. And also, in terms of, sorry, it's a bit hot today, but if you know that you're in with-profit funds, it's really worth reviewing the performance maybe coming out and getting some advice on investing in something better. Also, what some people may have done is they may have invested in really high-risk portfolios, and those high-risk portfolios, high exposure to shares and emerging markets, and those may have performed really well. But it's worth reviewing now, because as you approach retirement, those are fairly risky and volatile portfolios. What you really don't want to see is a situation where your investment portfolio burrows down like a homesick mole in some sort of market crash. So take some advice, spread the risk across different asset classes, and maybe invest in some less risky asset classes just to reduce that volatility and the possibility that you'll lose value just before you retire. Also, a lot of people are invested in lifestyling funds. Now, there's nothing wrong with lifestyling funds. Their whole focus is to reduce your risk as you get closer to retirement. So they invest in a more risky portfolio early on, when you can where you can actually make up any losses as a result of the risk, and you can get really decent returns. And then as you come closer to retirement, then they move into less risky investments like cash and corporate bonds, etc., just to reduce that volatility and reduce the chance that you're going to see a fall in the value of your pension just before you retire. Now, the problem with lifestyling funds is, as a general rule, they've been set up for people who are going to buy an annuity going into retirement. And that's very useful. But for people who are actually going to use Flexi Access Drawdown in retirement, where your money remains invested in the pension and you're actually drawing out the capital and the returns from your invested funds within the pension to meet your income requirements through retirement, well, actually you don't want to see yourself going into less risky assets. A lot of research out there shows that if you're going to be using drawdown, you probably need exposure of at least 50% to equities, just to ensure that you get the growth that you need to actually mitigate the impact of the withdrawals that you're making from the pension. So that becomes particularly important with Flexi Access Drawdown when we look at something called sequencing risk. Now, sequencing risk basically says that if you get poor performance in the first 10 years of your retirement and you're withdrawing income from the pension, you can absolutely devastate your pension. If you get really good returns in the first 10 years, even though you're drawing out the money from the pension, it does really, in a roundabout way, it's very unlikely to matter what your returns are like in the next 20 years, because actually those good returns in the first 10 years will help you to sustain your income needs all the way for the next 20 years. So that's sequencing risk. Sequencing risk basically says that if you get poor returns in the first 10 years, you might be a bit stooped going on into later years, and if you get good returns in the first 10 years, you're probably going to be fine in the next 20 years. Okay, so why is that important? So if you're in a lifestyling fund and you've now moved all into cash, then really low volatility portfolio, then you're not really getting the returns. You're getting poor returns right in the beginning in particular, and you start drawing out from your pension, you can really decimate the value of your pension over a 10-year period if you remain in that fund. So it's really important to avoid that sequencing risk. Firstly, that you have a decent portfolio selected with a reasonable exposure to equities and commercial property potentially and other asset classes, so that you'll get the growth that you need. And also so that you have a strategy in place to avoid substantial erosion of your pension portfolio if you don't get those returns that you need in the first 10 years, to mitigate that sequencing risk. All right, so like I said, first step is review your portfolio. Next step then, increase pension contributions. It's a basic reality. As you come into that last stretch towards retirement, chances are you've paid off your mortgage, hopefully. Your kids, you've gone through university, which is fantastic. But the key thing here is your income, the requirements on your income have probably reduced, and that's really beneficial because you've got more money available. Unfortunately, what a lot of people do is they just go, "Oh, hey, we got more money. Let's go and book another holiday." But in reality, what you should probably do is increase your contributions to your pension. If you increase your contributions to your pension, especially if you do it through your employer scheme, so you go to your employer and you say, look, can you actually increase the contributions being made to my pension out of my pre-tax income? That can be really beneficial, especially if your employer is happy to match the contributions that you make to your pension. So you can actually double up the contributions that you're making. It's very tax efficient. You're not paying national insurance on it. You're not paying tax on the money that's being paid into your pension, and you can draw some of it out at 25%. Okay, so that's a very good way of actually increasing your pension later on in the accumulation stage, where you're actually building up your pension. Also, in your 50s, it's quite in 50s, early 60s, it's quite often when you get the old tap on the shoulder where someone says to you, Okay, terribly sorry old chap, we're going to be making you redundant now. We're going to give you a good package, but you're going to be made redundant quite often because you earn more than some of your younger colleagues. Maybe the fight isn't there anymore, you're just not as keen on the job, and they detect that. But whatever it is, you know, it does seem to be, from my experience, that in your later 50s, early 60s, you get that old tap on the shoulder. All right, now that's not the end of the world. Quite often you get a really decent redundancy package, and the first £30,000 of your redundancy package is tax-free. Unfortunately, the rest is taxable. Now, one of the things you could do is you could ask your employer, see if your employer could arrange for your redundancy package to be paid to you in the following tax year. So maybe you're a non-taxpayer at that point, or a lower taxpayer, so you pay less tax on your redundancy payment. The other thing that you can do is, very importantly, you can ask your employer to pay some of your redundancy package into your pension instead of paying it directly to you. Once again, you're not going to pay income tax on it, you're not going to pay national insurance on it, so it's far more tax efficient, and it builds up your pension pot. All right, so that is review your portfolio, increase your pension contributions. The next thing then is potentially defer taking your state pension when you get the opportunity, and defer taking final salary pensions. Now, with your state pension is a fantastic benefit. I'm from South Africa, trust me, I know the state pension is massively underrated in the UK. A married couple, both with full national insurance contributions of 35 years each, could potentially be earning £18,000 a year from their state pension, and we all got to admit that's a pretty decent floor to your income. And also there's an element of inflation proofing in there as well. But if that's not going to be enough for you, and actually you plan to work further, there's an argument that could be made for actually deferring taking your state pension, because for each year that you defer your state pension, the income would increase by approximately £541.84, based on current legislation and current rules. Okay, and that's like a 5.8% increase in your income. And so, you know, sort of 1 or 2 years of deferment can add quite nicely to your income, especially if there's two of you doing it. So that might be an option. Also, if you defer your final salary pension for a year, there will be a natural increase anyway, because they're increased in line with inflation as a general rule. But also, some of them have an accelerated increase if you defer taking your pension. So in the years following your normal retirement age or the scheme retirement age, if you haven't taken your pension, there might be an accelerated increase in the value of the pension benefit, and so that's another way of increasing your benefits from a pension perspective. Also importantly, carrying on, so we've got review your portfolio, increase your pension contributions, defer taking your state pension or your final salary pension. The next one is make up any national insurance shortfalls. All right, you need 35 years for a full state pension. If you've got any shortfalls in your national insurance record, you can go back, and provided you're within 6 years of the missing year, you can actually make voluntary contributions to actually make up that shortfall. So what you can do is you can either check online through the government gateway, or you can complete a BR19 form and send that off, and you can actually find out what your pension contribution levels are at the moment, and then if there are any missing areas, you can just fill those out. You can make contributions to top up your national insurance contributions. So once again, as I said, state pension is a useful benefit, so actually it makes really good sense that if you get the option to top it up, do it. Alright, very fun. This is something that a lot of people don't think about, but actually the next option is find any lost pensions that you have. Okay, so it's now on average we have about 11 employers throughout our life, and we probably contributed to a pension for all of those. and we've lost them. And you may not think that that is a massive problem, but actually there's £19.4 billion in unclaimed pensions out there, floating around out there. So the question is, if you think you might have a lost pension, what do you do about it? So the first thing is the logical thing. If your old employer is still around, you can approach them with your national insurance number and details of your employment, and just say to them, look, you know, sort of who was the pension provider, and they might be able to point you in the right direction. Alternatively, what you could do is the government has a free pension tracing service. Once again, you're going to have to provide them with your national insurance number, details of your employment, and hopefully they might be able to help you out. The other thing that a lot of people forget about is if you actually, between 1978 and 2002, opted out of the state earnings related pension scheme. So you contracted out of that. So that the money that would have gone to that effectively second state pension was actually paid into a pension with a pension provider and built up a small pension pot. Now, when I say small, I mean the average apparently is around about £27,000 in one of these contracted out pensions. So it's a nice little addition if you can find one. So the question is, if you think you were in one of those contracted out pensions, what do you do? Well, you can approach the government once again, and you can provide them with your national insurance number, and they'll be able to look back at contributions that they've actually paid on your behalf and to which pension provider that was paid to, which will hopefully help you be able to track it down. So, you know, once again, that's another option. Find any lost pensions that you have. So if we just go through those again, review your investment portfolio, increase your pension contributions, defer taking state pension or and final salary pensions, make up any national insurance shortfalls, and find any lost pensions. The last one is going to sound a bit, you're going to look at me and go, well, obviously you're a financial advisor, obviously you say this. But one of the key things is take some financial advice. You know, you may look at the financial advisor and go, I'm not paying for that, I already know that, I already know how to do that. But you know, the thing that gets you isn't what you know, it's what you don't know. And a lot of financial advisors, for example, I've been doing this since 2004. I've got a lot of experience, I've worked with a lot of people. And a lot of financial advisors have experience, and just to highlight that, if we look at Numis, for example, Numis carried out some research which showed, including charges, that having a financial advisor added 2% per year to a investment portfolio over a portfolio which is managed by somebody by themselves without a financial advisor or any wealth management assistance. The International Longevity Centre came up with a figure which basically said that if you took financial advice between 2001 and 2006, by the time that you got to 2014-16, that would have added £47,000 of boost to your overall wealth, just by taking that financial advice. So, you know, the evidence is there. We do add value, even though, you know, you pay for the service, but actually taking financial advice can make a huge difference. We know a lot of things, and we understand a lot of options that you have, which can make a difference to particularly your retirement and your retirement income. And this is very important when you start actually withdrawing money from your pension, because at that point we can actually start applying strategies which make sure that you don't run out of money in the future. Alright, so that's just brings us to the end of this what's a pretty brief session on 6 ways to improve your pension. I hope you found it pretty useful. As always, if you have any questions, give us a call. My contact details will come up on a slide in a couple of seconds. Our first consultation is always free, and if you know, at worst, we tell you that you're fine and there's nothing we can do for you. But at best, maybe we can tweak things and put you in a much better position. All right. Thanks for joining us and have a great day. Thanks once again for joining us for today's presentation. I hope you found it useful. If you'd like any further information, all our contact details are below, so please feel free to get in touch with us anytime. Have a great day.